We talked about networking. Next piece on our agenda is networking. So I'll have Bill come up and address that. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. I've had some warning from some directors already that after the meal, and especially the way the desserts were, I should either be entertaining or short. There was the comments about food being thrown if I wasn't sufficient in either respect, so I'll try and at least be short if I can't be entertaining. A little bit of networking up front of my own. As I was leaving today, somebody said, can you take some soccer balls over to the meeting? Somebody's only going to be there today, and she had to be 4 in a bag. I want to say the name was Ron. Ron, put up your hand. Let's do a little networking. Ron's still here? Ron, Rick, somebody wants 4 soccer balls. He was introduced earlier. Did he leave at supper? He heard I was speaking, so he left. Rick Rose. Rick? Is Rick here? I think he left. Rick, I've got your soccer balls. Damn, I think that was my only important function today. Might be a career-limiting move, as Harry calls them. So networking, it's interesting talking to a group this young, and I can say that now, and I think I'm wearing shoes older than some of the people in the crowd. But I'm sure this generation probably does a lot more networking than any other one. So I'm sure I'm partially being put on the agenda late in the evening, partially because this is a light topic and one that you'll hopefully be interested in, but probably quite a ways down the road on already. I know it's something that a lot of you already do. Let's see, how many people were in 4-H? Put up your hand. Okay, junior farmers. How many people know an MPP by name, your local MPP? Your local MP. And you're here today, that would be everybody put up your hand. So this is networking, right? You're already doing it. It's not brain surgery, but we'll try and talk about it quickly at a fairly high level. I'm going to talk about what it is, why it's important, why some people, believe it or not, are afraid of networking, how to go about building your network, some basic rules, and then a little bit about e-networking. And this is probably a group that does more of that than any other group. Networking is pretty simple, and I could just say it's making friends. It's a process of establishing a mutually beneficial relationship with other people. A lot of people think about it often in a business context. You're networking for a job. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about it from a point of view of the sector and the benefit that it can be for the industry. Why? Why should we network? It's really easy to connect, easier now than ever before, and it's a powerful way for us to promote egg farming. You can also make contacts and have experiences that you wouldn't be possible if you didn't network. And you can share our story and advanced egg farmers' interests. It's really interesting. You'll never know when a relationship is going to be useful that you've been able to establish. So don't overlook any opportunity. I mean, Harry made some comments about this earlier today, a little bit about what I was talking about, and he did such a good job of it in about 2 minutes, I was afraid I really shouldn't even speak tonight. But, I mean, Harry networks at a government level. I do some of that. I network with the media. We network on a different level at the staff level professionally. But there's opportunities for you at the political level all across the province, municipally, provincially, and federally, which I'll talk about. And you never know when those sorts of things are going to be useful. I'll give you an example for me personally, well, professionally, but personally. I got a call from a dairy farmer. This is when I was in one of my couple of decades with Dairy Farmers of Ontario, to go to a local meeting that I really wouldn't normally go to. It was a regional meeting, a county monthly meeting. Senior staff would never go. He calls me and says, Bill, you need to come up to the Simcoe meeting. I said, Dave, it's kind of weird. He says, yeah, Steve Verhoel. This was about 15 years ago. Chief Ag Negotiator has just been appointed. You should come meet him, okay? I got my butt in the car, drove up to Simcoe. I would never go to that meeting. You couldn't possibly, as a staff, begin to go to all the local county annual meetings. But it started a relationship and a level of trust that I was able to build over the years, which have really been useful. And so you never know when you're going to get that call, when that sort of opportunity is going to come up. But that's the sort of thing that can happen. Common myths about networking, and I don't think this crowd is into any of these. Nobody thinks it's difficult. Manipulative is more seen in a business context. We have nothing that we need to be embarrassed about. When you're talking to somebody as an egg farmer, they're interested in what you're doing. It's easy to build those sorts of relationships. Some people don't think they're the networking type. I think most of you probably are. That's why you're here today. And there's all kinds of opportunity and benefit to the industry for you to do that. Who can you network with? Friends, neighbors, colleagues, business connections, members of social or professional groups, church members, Rotary, Lions Club, and now you're getting into some of the more interesting ones for me, riding associations, and elected officials at all levels, from municipal on up, because municipal politicians go into provincial politics, and provincial politics sometimes go into federal politics. So you can make a friend and have a connection which 20 years later can be really useful, and I don't think you can underestimate that. I'll digress into one more story, and again, for me, because it's on a professional level, I was able and exposed to, really fortunate, felt really privileged to get to know Eugene Whalen over the years. And he knew I had a media background. I was a reporter after I milked cows. I was a reporter before I went to dairy farmers. And when he found that out, we'd had a number of discussions, and he had a radio show while he was senator in Ottawa for, I'm going to say, he had a radio show for 5 or 10 years. And I'd just get a call out of the blue. See his number come up, pick him up, hold the phone out about here when Eugene's on the phone. Bill, Gene Whalen. Yes, Eugene. Senator Whalen, how can I help you? I got a radio show this weekend. You're on it. Okay. Right? And those bastards are attacking us again in the Globe and Mail, and I want you. Now, I knew, for starters, I was booked on a radio show. I better be on the line. 2, I really needed to have 3 or 4 points I was going to make because it was a half-hour show, and Eugene was going to talk the whole time. So all I needed to do was throw him 2 or 3 hooks that would get him going, and anybody that knows Gene Whalen, like he would just crank up and go. So I would have a couple of leading lines that I knew would wind him up, but he just wanted, he needed an excuse. He needed a hook, somebody out of the dairy industry on the phone. It could have been anybody. He wasn't calling me because I was good, trust me. He was just, but again, it's a contact. We had it. It was a chance to push some messages. So you never know when that's going to be. Now, there aren't a lot of people like Eugene to network with, but it was always a lot of fun for me. Networking, yeah, you don't actually need to do this, but every one of you should probably have a list. You've heard me talk about politicians, municipal, federal, provincial. At some point after the meeting, come up with 5 people that either you already have a relationship with that you'd like to strengthen because you think it would be beneficial. And it's beneficial in both ways because, it's not always just about using somebody. When you build a relationship, they'll call you, there's something useful, they have information, a politician calls you, they need information. It's got to go both ways or it's not going to be useful. But think about who you might be able to network with. You probably already have half a dozen connections that will actually be useful, but you could probably have half a dozen more over the next couple of years that you could work on. Some simple rules, and it's really all pretty straightforward. It's about building relationships, maintaining relationships, and building trust. People do business with people they like, and people they trust, and people they value. So if you're just yourselves when you're talking to people and talk about your business, that's all you need to do to build relationships. And build trust gradually. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't call a politician and ask them for something. I mean, the general approach we take in supply management is never ask a politician for anything. You don't go to them with a problem. You go to them with a solution. That's really what we're in business to do. But the sort of trust that you need so that they will call you back and ask you a question takes time to develop, and you can't rush that. Maintaining relationships, you really have to think long term. Networking, you're not hunting, you're a farmer, right? So you're not just after a quick hit. You're trying to build a relationship. It's a long-term activity. You'll be able to do things for them sometimes. You'll be able to provide information for them. At some point, it goes the other way, and maybe not. Right? But those sorts of things tend to work themselves out over time. And if it's only us helping other people, that's a good enough reason to network, even if we never need their help. And this is one of Harry's comments, my last line. Like you can't plant seeds and rush to harvest. It takes water, it takes fertilizer. These things take time to happen. And lastly, e-networking, mainly because this is 2014. I mean, with everything that's going on, there's a lot of networks that didn't even exist 10 years ago, 5 years ago, some of them. LinkedIn is an excellent corporate platform, but you can create a profile as a professional egg farmer and establish some connections and build a network. Facebook, of course, is the primary social networking site, and so I know some people are active on it already, and it's the same with Twitter. These are tools that are really just an extension of networking at a personal level that give you a lot more reach. And I don't think that we can afford to ignore them. But all the same rules apply. Just because you're on the web, just because you're on Twitter, just because you're on Facebook, you still have to be honest. You still deal with people fairly. You still have to build their trust. All of the same rules apply. It just gives you a lot more reach.
Ask how many are on Facebook. How many are on Facebook? Hands up.
Here we go.
Okay. How many are on LinkedIn? Okay. How many Twitter? Okay. There you go.
So it's a group that didn't need to know about it right now. Everybody always needs to know, right, Harry?
What's that?
Everybody always needs to know about it. And this group, I mean, is more plugged in than any other generation. So you're ahead of the curve on all of these things. So I think it's wonderful. Anyway, I'll stop there. Nobody threw anything. Thank you, Roger, for not throwing anything. I appreciate that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any. And if not, I won't stand between you and your next source of entertainment. But Harry will. And if there's no questions, thank you very much.
Just a couple comments. When you've gone on vacation and you've told them that you are an egg farmer, people, I'm going to assume people will ask other questions after that. Anybody experience that when you've gone on vacation? Right? They want to know more about farming, egg farming, that kind of stuff. They find you interesting. So there's a beginning in terms of on vacation. Everybody has a card, so make sure when you go, you've got a card with, if you've got an email address, make sure it's on there. Just a quick email back to people. Nice to meet you. Here's a link to Egg Farmers of Ontario recipe site. Or if you've got a mailing address and people still like to receive mail, we can get you some spice cards you can mail to people. I remember one year Chris took some eggs to the local politicians, just thanked them for their support for supply management, brought in, I think it was 2 or 3 dozen to the federal and provincial members at the same time. So it's small things like that in terms of how they get to remember you. Part of networking is also maintaining what I'm going to say confidentiality. There are things that people will tell you in confidence that you can't tell anybody else, particularly around the government relations end of it. I can't tell you, Bill can't tell you, Scott can't tell you the meetings that we've had with individuals. And the true mark, and we're getting into the lobby side a little bit, the true mark of a good lobbyist, they never want to see their name associated with anything. They just want to know that they've had impact well before it comes out in terms of legislation. And the only way you have that impact is to start that relationship, as Bill says, is build that trust. And it takes time to do that. He was talking about the planting the seed. It's for those that know the Bible, it's a parable of the sower, right? Sometimes it falls on good ground, sometimes it falls on bad ground, sometimes the birds get it, sometimes the sun comes out, but you still have to sow it. And you sow it by basically all the fall fairs, all the Chamber of Commerce's. Talk to any of your either Chamber of Commerce or service clubs. They're always looking for someone to talk about agriculture. Some of us are Rotarians. There's a weekly meeting. Basically, they're looking. They're just begging for people to come and be speakers and talk about the local economy. People are interested in local food, right? They want to know what local is. They want to know what's going on in each of their communities, particularly in terms of labeling, making sure that what's in the product and everybody knows it. So again, it's not difficult, and once you get in terms of used to it, it really just is building that network, and somebody else knows somebody else, and somebody else knows somebody else, and that's how it. There's a theme. Anybody know what they call the 6 degrees of separation? You know what the 6 degrees of separation is? 6 degrees of separation says that you're no more than 6 connections away from everybody else in the world. So here's one for you. I personally know Johnny Cash's sister, Joanne Cash. She stayed at our house at Rogers Place. So now there's the 6. You can take that 6 degrees wherever we want. Johnny Cash would know Hank Snow. So that's how 6 degrees work. That's really what networking is about. That's building a web, if you would, of contacts, and that's what's going to make us and continue to make us successful as egg farmers of Ontario.